DIY 102, How to Create a Two-Sided Game Board. Lesson 1.1, Introduction. Hi. Didn't see you there. My name is Matt Kremer, and I am going to be the instructor for this class, which is called DIY 102. What I'm going to be doing is teaching you how to create a double-sided game board. I've created a prototype already, and I'd like to show you around it right now. Prototype! One side of this board has an 8x8 grid, which can be used to play chess or checkers, also known as drafts in various places around the world. The basic grid can also be used to play dozens of other games. If you're interested, you can search on the web for them. You'll notice that there are half-inch diameter holes for marbles to sit in at the center of each square. This is so that you can play checkers or other games with marbles instead of checkers. We'll talk more about this later, but now, let me show you the other side of the prototype. The other side of the prototype! This side of the board has the layout for a marble racing game called Wahoo. Wahoo has been around so long that it's in the public domain, but some of you may have already noticed that it looks a lot like Sorry or Trouble or even Aggravation, which has 6 spokes instead of the 4 shown here. But no, indeed, this is Wahoo. Definitely Wahoo, and definitely not any of those others. So don't worry about Parker Brothers or Milton Bradley coming after you. Wahoo happens to have similar rules to those other games, which means that some of the special spaces will have specific meanings, and you'll get to design those spaces and indicate them in your own way, just like you'll be able to design the 8x8 grid in your own way. But to do that correctly, you'll need to learn the basic rules of the games. You'll also notice that this board is what's called melamine white shelf board, which is made from medium density fiberboard, or MDF, with a melamine laminate on the top, bottom, and one of the edges. It's 2 feet by just a 1/4 inch shy of 2 feet, which is close enough for our purposes, but it started out as a 4-foot long piece of shelving that I got someone at Home Depot to cut right down the middle. We'll get more into how to source your board and other materials in Assignment 1A, but for now, I'll give you a quick run through on how it went from a blank board to this. First of all, I didn't want it to look too sloppy, which meant that I had to plan ahead. I found the center of the board, and then I scribed light guidelines and X's for the marble holes. This was easy math, but it did take a lot of attention to detail, as we'll discuss through Lesson 1. By the way, scribing is a term that builders, woodworkers, and other DIY types use when they draw something in pencil. And that's probably the most esoteric jargon in this entire class, so don't worry. Then, once the lines were all scribed, it was time to drill the marble holes. I used a hand power drill with a 1/16 inch drill bit to drill a pilot hole, and then used a 1/2 inch bit to finish the job. I surrounded the drill bits with masking tape at 3/8 of an inch up the bit so that I could see that I wasn't going to accidentally drill all the way through the board, which in this case is 3/4 of an inch thick. Once the holes were drilled, I used the guidelines that I placed earlier to make the 8x8 grid and design the color scheme. I used a piece of paper first, and I made 2 squares on it to see if it looked good. And after that, I then colored the board itself and identified the grid for chess and the black squares for checkers. Then for the Wahoo side, I had to figure out how I wanted to color each player's key positions, and then how to identify the special spaces where you could leap to the shortcut in the center. Like before, I tried it on paper first, and then I indicated the board itself. The last step was to erase all the guidelines that I did back before drilling, and viola! Wait, this isn't a viola, this is a game board. Okay then, voila, a game board! I've played on both sides of this board with family and friends, and it plays very nicely. The permanent markers have kept their permanence over time, and having both sides means that you can play chess or checkers one-on-one, or Wahoo with up to 4 players. And there you have it! I hope you enjoy this course, and if you have any questions for me, my contact information is on the bottom of practically every page in this course. Please see the information on the Lesson 1.1 page on how to source your materials, and notice that you shouldn't buy the design and indication materials until after Lesson 3.2, but you should get the rest lined up right away and complete Assignment 1A, Sourcing Your Materials, Part 1, Board and Hardware, under the Task tab. Next time, we'll learn more about layout and rules for these games, so until then, happy how-toing! Happy how-toing? Is that a good catchphrase? I don't know, maybe I'll change it.